that's all from Hospital Broadcasting for tonight. We hope you've enjoyed our programmes and that you'll join us again tomorrow. We reopen as usual at 7 o'clock, and amongst tomorrow evening's programmes is Request Line. Don't forget, if you'd like a request, our telephone number is on the walls of all the wards, and there are also postcards in the wards with our address on. But now, from all of us here to all of you, a very good night.
There are no 8-hour days as far as caring is concerned.
Hello, David. Got your sleep? How about cuddling Joey? There you are. Kissing good night. That's it. There you are. Night night.
There is always someone to watch over the sick and injured. Someone to clean, someone to cook, someone to keep the lights burning, someone to comfort, someone to care. A.m., a familiar sight and sound. This is an RTA, road traffic accident. The accident and emergency department prepare to receive another casualty. Harold Bennett, on his way home after a night shift, has been hit by a car. That's when the health service takes over.
Lovely.
Head first.
Day or night, it makes no difference at moments like this. A man is badly injured. He needs surgery. The next few hours in Harold Bennett's life are critical. For everyone else, it's a job of work. And that doesn't mean just the medical and nursing staff. These are only the front-line services. There is so much more to this organization.
Probably the most immediately apparent aspects of the backup services are those provided by the laboratory backup services and the radiology backup services. Further back than that, there is an echelon of maintenance personnel, electronic, electrical, primarily, I suppose, and behind that still, the enormous amount of organizational services which are required to see that the right things and the right people appear in the right places at the right times.
If you'd like to just take that down to X-ray and ask them if they can do it quickly. And if they'd like to come and call us here and let the porters know, okay?
A hospital is people. A whole town of people. They all work together, but may never come into close contact. Yet one service and one department is often so dependent on another.
Answering 704 on 3740. Thank you. Dr. Shah?
You've got a Dr. Geyer in
3515. Sorry? When would they come into here? 224, please. Thank you.
Now, hold on a moment.
Record. Hospital. Record.
General Hospital.
247.
I don't remember, Jane. Hello.
Hello, please. Hello, General Hospital. Hello, thank you, Joy.
What is routine in the daily life of a large general hospital can be an unwanted and painful experience to those who need help and comfort.
Are you? Yes. How long ago did this happen? About half an hour, sir?
They see doctors and nurses, people in starched white coats, and trolleys being pushed down long corridors. They don't understand or appreciate that this is the shop window or front line of a service that deals every day in emergencies.
You've broken your collarbone, have you? Gosh.
Hello. What's been happening to you then?
Hit my collarbone. Hit my shoulder.
You fell over on your shoulder? When did you do that?
Yesterday.
Yesterday?
Yesterday evening.
Good public relations, I think, has begun to play a very considerable part in drawing together the various frontline medical personnel and, in particular, their own immediate backup organisations.
Right, the bricks fell out, did they?
Oh no, I slipped on the run.
You slipped on the rung of the ladder, and you fell all the way down to the bottom?
No, caught up in the timbering scaffold.
So how far did you fall?
A hospital is exactly the same as a battleship or an aircraft carrier in size and complexity, and it needs exactly the same sort of backup services.
There we are. Now, when we take the picture, we'll ask you to breathe in, out, and stop, all right? Now, if you breathe in, and out, and stop. Tell me very still. Fine, carry on breathing. There we are then, that's all finished, okay?
There are well over 100 different jobs within the Health Authority organization, and many of those are concerned with the day-to-day running of a general hospital. Yet, not everyone finds it necessary to visit the wards and make contact with patients. But that does not diminish the role they play or the contribution they make to this town within a town. The grim evidence of one man's accident is a sharp reminder that all the resources and skill of a modern hospital are there to help each and every individual when it matters most. At all levels, the work goes on, not just in the operating department, but also far away from such familiar front-line situations.
Thank you.
Inevitably, Harold Bennett will become a statistic, a name in a folder, unknown by those who punch out the details of age and family background for the benefit of hungry computers. But that is how far the backup services stretch. Computers can streamline the system, but how can a machine know when or how to order more oxygen cylinders, or new sheets and curtains? Like it or not, paperwork is essential to this organization. Yet administration, despite a necessary emphasis on figures and finance, does reach out and touch the man and woman in a hospital bed. Listen to Julie Young.
I'm a ward clerk, and it involves helping the sister, and I answer to her for my duties whilst on the ward. It usually involves admitting patients with the paperwork and making sure that they have their wrist tags on with their name and identity and age. General administration work of handing out the menus and helping the elderly maybe choose their menu for the following day. Going to choose tomorrow's lunch?
Yeah.
Do you know what? It's brown beef stew and dumplings. We were only talking about dumplings yesterday, weren't we?
Yeah, that's right.
You going to have that tomorrow?
Yeah.
Fine. You're there for the patients concerned to make sure that you can give them a cheery good morning and perhaps help their day on.
Cool.
And just a friendly word in general, I think, helps them. And make yourself useful if you can. Salad? No? Corned beef sandwich? No. Poached egg? Ah, right.
That's better.
And a cup of tea?
Cup of who?
Tea?
Tea?
Yes.
Yes, tea.
All right then. Yeah, you can go back to sleep now, Bill.
That'll suit me.
Good.
Think about it.
All right, Bill.
Morning, Mr. Herwick.
Tomorrow's menu is always a good topic of bedside conversation, but for catering manager Keith Ledbetter, it's much more than that. Likes and dislikes matter, yet so do the medical needs of patients who have to have a special daily diet.
To take into account the diets, this is the backbone work before it actually gets to the patient. Before we introduce a menu, varying people see the menu and go through it on experience. Of course, the dietitian's brought in here. When in fact it goes to the patient, it's probably the result of 4 or 5 months' work to produce that menu.
Suspicious a meal. All right, so that'll be all right then.
Yes, that'll be all right.
I'll check with you tomorrow about breakfast.
Right, that's fine.
And the other one that we've got is a lady who's a diabetic, but she's been having reactions in the evening, so we've had to increase the diet in the evening.
Keith Ledbetter is the man with the money. Yet how does he balance out such an enormous shopping list?
It is one of the most difficult planning problems for any catering manager.
I got the turkeys you
Yeah.
right, weren't you?
I've got 250 at 28p a pound.
Well, we couldn't take 250. With a bit of moving around, 200.
You can take 200. By Friday?
Yeah.
Okay,
200.
I'll get in touch with Sam then and we'll take 200.
He has to try and foresee the possible price of food well ahead. It's not easy, just as direct patient contact is a problem for him.
The place is big. I couldn't possibly see every patient as a catering manager, but the team I have under me do a regular visit of certain wards. We may not see every patient, but should the situation arise, then a member of my immediate team on the catering management side would go and see that individual patient, as we would with the staff as well. We're not hidden away in the background and sort of only appear at Christmas. I don't think they know what makes up our department. I think a lot of people still expect lunch at 12 o'clock with no concept of how the lunch becomes the lunch on the ward. And in this way, no, they don't know enough about each other's department within a large complex like this one. We're feeding, in fact, far more staff than we do patients. Patients is about 700. Staff we feed at lunchtime, just over 1,000 now.
Keeping a hospital clean is not a haphazard job. The domestic services staff have to fit in with daily routine. Charlotte Innes has the responsibility of organising it.
After I left college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I got to know the domestic manager at the hospital in Bournemouth, and she offered me a job as a supervisor. And I worked there for 3 months, and then I went on the national training scheme for domestic managers.
Well, you can leave it for the first 5 days and just mop it back with GP liquid and water.
I would say the first line contact with the patient is the domestic on the ward, because they are dealing with them nearly all the time, giving them their tea, their meals, talking to them when they're working.
Because one thing we've tried
From her desk, Charlotte Innes keeps in close touch with the various wards through her supervisors. The aim of all of them is to keep the hospital spick and span.
I've spoken to the shop steward concerned and one of the nursing officers, and I'd like you, Lil, to have D level together and you, Dawn, to have F level together, because it doesn't affect G. We try to get across to everybody outside the hospital that it's not a Mrs. Mock type of job anymore, it's a highly technical job. And this is, I think it's improving with the general public, but I don't think it's as appreciated maybe as well as the nursing staff appreciate the type of job we do.
Both window curtains and cubicle? Both window and cubicle curtains, yes. We have spares for this level, and I've got them locked away, so if ever you want curtains changed, you've just got to yell. Well, now, that's interesting.
There isn't a department, either inside or outside the hospital, that can afford to isolate itself from the day-to-day routine. Domestic staff working alongside the medical staff are a good example. It is this close cooperation which ensures that the health service machinery runs smoothly.
It's a very self-contained world, very self-supporting world, self-sufficient. It hangs together like a cohesive whole, really. You've got an atmosphere when you come into a building, you feel it's a hospital. So I think with any job that involves daily contact with patients who are ill and to some extent not themselves, and feeling sorry for themselves and very vulnerable, is patience and a considerable degree of understanding, trying to understand how they feel. But overall patience, because you must never rise if they're angry with you, and you've always got to be willing to lend a hand when they're crying or, generally miserable. I think that's, above all, is the quality you need.
Henry Highland became a hospital porter with just those qualifications. It's a job which means much more than just pulling a trolley from one end of a corridor to another.
I enjoy it because of the daily contact with people who you feel you can help in some way.
But that daily contact is denied to those in the backup services who are well away from the patient's bedside. Yet, no matter how remote they may seem, many backup departments must be organized efficiently to keep the hospital routine ticking over. After all, washing and ironing 100,000 pieces of laundry each week must be a business and not a chore. To most people, working in a hospital means becoming a nurse or a doctor. But this isn't so anymore. The horizons are wider and more varied than that.
It's possible now, with the reorganised setup, that you could perhaps come into the hospital as an engineering craftsman or as an electrician. You could finish up. There's no reason why you shouldn't finish up as chief engineer for the Department of Health. There's that sort of career prospect.
Well, that's fine. That brickwork looks as if it might need a bit of attention around the edges there on the coil. It's a bit broken away. We might have to do something with that, but otherwise it looks fairly clean.
I think it means more. The ultimate result is far greater. The priorities are far different than, for example, in an engineering industry. The patient is the end product, so to speak, rather than perhaps a load of tin cans that you might be churning out if you're in a factory. So in that respect, certainly there's a greater priority of being a hospital engineer than one in industry.
Are you all right, Mr. Keane? Won't be too much longer.
Today, nuclear medicine has extended the boundaries of treatment. Yet the skill and experience of each individual is always the key factor. Take pathology, for example, where part of the work is cytology, the search for telltale cancer smears. Maybe only half a dozen slides in 1,000 are likely to show them, but each deserves close scrutiny. Machines can do many things, but selecting pills or mixing up the medicine must remain in the hands of pharmacists. They are trained to decipher the requirements of all hospital departments. Every day the orders have to be examined so that stocks on the wards can be replenished and eventually the patient can receive the daily dosage prescribed to him by the doctor. He gets the tablets and takes it all for granted. Another example of the unseen backup.
Your tablets, Mr. Oliver? You take those. All right? Yes.
And if the medicine doesn't have the right effect, then a little friendly persuasion might just do the job.
Try and point your toes right down. That's it. And now bend your foot right up. That's it. Except that's quite painful, isn't it?
Doesn't hurt at all.
Now hold it. Do it again. Hold it there and try and get it up a bit more. Just hump it up
The
here.
physiotherapists take over where the surgeons leave off.
That's it.
Their association with patients can sometimes be a long and painful relationship.
Over. A bit harder.
Jackie Gardner is a senior physiotherapist dealing with those who've had neurosurgery. With Moira Carroll, they're encouraging patients to take the first faltering steps back to a normal life.
Lean forward and stand. No, you're leaning. Come on, take them forward and push up. You are. Take hold of the tripod and off you go. My responsibility in the hospital is mainly to rehabilitate patients after they've had operations in my particular part of physiotherapy. Get them well enough to be able to cope themselves at home. Slowly, and you're going to walk into that frame. They tend to be frightened of us, first of all, because they're not sure what we're going to do with them, and everything is active between us. Now, no, keep your still now. In you go. That's it, down. When a patient turns around to you and says, "Thank you for all you've done. You've got me home," I feel something. Every time they come up and see the doctor, which is every 3 months, 6 months, they always pop in and say hello. With that one. Keep them right down that way.
Not too much backfill. Keep it battered on.
Medical advancement means space, a lot of it. New departments and more sophisticated equipment. The backup is there too, with specialist architects leading the design
The
teams.
interesting part about this area is that one pool, the paediatric, may have to go, and if it does, we shall extend the treatment.
Reorganization has meant the bringing together of all the facets of community health care. The District General Hospital plays a major role, but it is only one part of the health service. There's also the family doctor service, outpatient clinics, maternity services, and teams involved in psychiatry, preventative medicine, and rehabilitation inside and outside the hospital. It's an ever-widening service, all in the cause of patient care.
Stand him up a minute then, and I'll flip it for you.
One more yellow one.
Click on.
Will you be quiet, please?
Despite its size, the hospital still has a heart. It's people that matter. There is now a stronger link with those organizations outside the hospital. Social workers now make regular contacts with those patients who may still need advice and help when they return home.
Either now when you're in hospital, or is there any way we can help you sort things out when the time comes for you to go home?
Yes, I'm sure there's lots of things.
Yeah.
I'm very worried about it, really.
How often does your daughter get over to see you?
About once a week.
Once a week?
Yes,
Yes.
that's all. But, of course, I should be on my own at night time.
It is difficult to remain detached and not get involved with more the elderly patients that don't have visitors. You feel that you'd like to do something extra for them.
Need to think about
Yes.
having somebody to come in and give you a hand perhaps once or twice a week
But
with
yes,
housework.
yes, I should probably have to need that, shan't I?
You know, to do the jobs that
You do go home and think about them. There's no saying you don't, because you do. You can't go out of here and just cut yourself off completely. You do think about the patients back at the hospital. If you didn't, well, I don't think you would be doing your job properly. You wouldn't be getting that involvement that perhaps makes you perhaps a better worker, I think, maybe.
Thanks, Patricia.
I have a request now for all the men in Lower St Michael's of the General Hospital from staff nurse Julia Richards, who is very sorry to have left the ward and sends her warmest wishes to you all. And Julie has asked us to play this record for you.
I get great job satisfaction from working with such a great crowd of people.
The end product, if you like to call it that, is the patient. That is far more important than any piece of machinery.
I've been in the health service 10 years. If I hadn't found job satisfaction, I would have left.
I like hospital atmosphere. I like being with a number of people, with people from different walks of life, people with different interests.
Harold Bennett is a statistic, an end product. But in this town within a town, people are the priority. And for every patient, the backup is all too often unknown and unseen. Accountant, architect, audit clerk, catering supervisor, dietitian, domestic cleaner, electrician, engineer.
I've never really thought about the health service like that. I suppose it takes all sorts.